Hello there. Today we're going to talk a little bit about teachers. And our team is conformed by Isaac Amire Huancach, Odel Herrera Paredes, Gabriela Lucía Quijano González, and yours truly, Héctor Cámara Torres. Well, let's move on to the next slide. And teachers. Let's talk a little bit about this topic. We need to define what a teacher is. And according to the Cambridge Online Dictionary, a teacher is someone whose job is to teach in a school or college. It is also a person who instructs or trains others, especially in a school. And we have another definition. According to the Merriam-Webster Online Dictionary, a teacher is one that teaches. It is also a person or thing that teaches something. And let's pause a little bit in this one, because it is not always a person who teaches you something. It could be life, could be the experience who teaches you something. And another acception is a person whose job is to teach students about certain subjects. So you notice that there are several words with bold in these sections. We have to teach, we have instructs, we have trains, teaches, teaches, teach. So basically the word that is more frequent over here is teach, teach, teaches, teaches, teach. So what is teach? Well, according to the Cambridge Online Dictionary, teach is to give someone knowledge or to train someone, basically to instruct. Sounds simple, right? But it is not as easy as it seems. Why? Let's move on. Describing good teachers. Well, this is important. There is a certain subjectivity to describe what it is that makes a person a good teacher. Moreover, according to Harmer, it is difficult to give general descriptions of good teachers because different teachers are often successful in different ways. How is that? Well, we have, for example, some teachers that are more extrovert or introvert than others. And let's think a little bit about that. It is not the same if you have an extrovert teacher than if you have an introvert teacher. Maybe the extrovert teacher is more akin to teach you with songs, with music, and the introvert teacher is more silent. It depends. Let's move on. Another point, different teachers have different strengths and weaknesses. And this is kind of obvious because not everyone has the same skills than other people could have. And the last one, how students view individual teachers. And this is also kind of obvious. Not all students will share the same opinions. Well, it's part of the subjectivity that we are talking about in here. So one person could argue that teacher A is better than teacher B, but another person could be on the opposite. So this is the subjectivity of it. Well, let's move on to the next slide. We have a phrase over here. It is often said that good teachers are born, not made. So what do you think about this? Do you think it's true? Could be not. There is a big word over here, but let's move on to find about this. But there are also others, perhaps, who do not have what appears to be a natural gift, but who are still effective and popular teachers. Such teachers learn their craft through a mixture of, and let's see, we have personality, we have intelligence, we have knowledge, and we have experience. And how they reflect on it? Well, let's pause a little bit in this section. A teacher could be like a magnet, could have a great personality, and this helps to give a class, to teach a class. A teacher could have intelligence, because this is kind of the phrase that someone can know about his or her subject, but to teach that knowledge, that's another thing. So you have to have the intelligence to teach. Also the knowledge, because if you don't know what you're going to teach, well, you are going to be on big troubles. And absolutely experience, this is kind of the most valuable one, because experience gives you almost everything. You know how to react, you know how to behave. So, well, it's important. And if you reflect on it, it's more important, I believe. Well, this is kind of a recommendation. According to the blog WikiHow, teaching is one of the most important professions in today's society. As a teacher, you will shape the minds of others and encourage them to think independently. And let's think about it, because we are aspiring to teach the next generation. And in this next generation, we could have the next leader of our inner circle, of our community, of our country. So we have a big responsibility in there. Well, this blog also recommends 4 methods. Number 1, developing a good classroom environment. This is really important, because if your environment is not stable, well, you're going to be in big trouble. Number 2, dealing with classroom challenges. This is really important as well, because if you have some troubles, you need to react, and you need to react almost immediately. Otherwise, this problem could escalate, and it's like the snow in this great avalanche. When you are having this disaster, it starts small, but then it becomes really big. Number 3, maintaining the right mindset. Yeah, we have to be positive. We need to discard negativity. This is also really important. And the last one, improving as a teacher. Well, we need to be in a constant state of improving. We need to be in a constant state of researching and updating what we know. And let's move on to the next slide. This phrase summarizes what we're talking about. Some of the teachers who are apparently born teachers weren't like that at the beginning at all, but grew into the role as they learned their craft. So, with this phrase, you have it. We can be a good teacher, we can become good teachers if we prepare. And if we are prepared, we can deal with everything that stays in front of us. Well, moving on to the next one, we have some things to consider. For example, teaching is not an easy job, but it is a necessary one, and can be very rewarding when we see our students' progress, and now that we have helped to make it happen. Yeah, it's the proud that comes with teaching, to see another people have a successful life because what we teach him or her. So absolutely. And this is another statement. It is true that some lessons and students can be difficult and stressful at times, but it is also worth remembering that at its best, teaching can also be extremely enjoyable. And that's kind of the principal point. If we enjoy what we are doing, no matter if it is teaching, if it is accountability, if it is tourism, we're going to enjoy what we're doing because we love what we're doing. And that leads us to this next image. Check what it says. I have perfected the teacher I, and I'm not afraid to use it. Anywhere, anytime. So think about it, and let's move on with the next topic.
Hi everyone. Now I'm going to talk to you about who teachers are in class. Students often get an idea of who we are as a result of how we look. Sometimes it can be related to the stereotypes. For example, for us, English teacher, common stereotype is that we carry a speaker everywhere we go. Sometimes it is true, but sometimes not. And well, this is nothing like wrong because we know that we are more than what we look. And the students as well, they expect more than that. The book mentioned 3 characteristics of what students expect from us. And the first one is the personality. They don't want to see us just like a professional person that comes and gives instructions and gives homework and etc. etc. They also want to know who we are as a person. Maybe they don't want to know every single thing about us, but they want to know that we are someone like outside the class, that we are not like a character. And the second one is the adaptability. This is a characteristic that sometimes makes a difference between some teachers and others. Because we should have this ability to change when there is something that was not expected in the lesson plan. And we have to be prepared and to be flexible with the students, and they also expect that from us. For example, when some students want to work in a different manner, we should be flexible about that. And the third one is about teacher roles. Well, we need to be able to adopt different roles in the class depending on the moment of the class, depending on the context. For example, we can act as controllers, like when we are giving instructions, when we are pairing them up, and so on and so on. As prompters, like when we want to encourage them to go beyond what they think that they are able to do, and feedback providers as well. We need to be able to give good feedback, and we are going to talk about that a little more. And well, these are one of the roles that we can have in the class and that students also expect us to have during the class. Now the next subtopic is rapport, and we're going to talk about what it is. Now, what is rapport? Well, in simple words, this is the relationships that students have with the teacher and vice versa. In order to have a good rapport with our students, we need to take in consideration the next things. First, we have recognizing students. Well, for this, I know it is something difficult sometimes because being realistic, most of the groups are about 30 and 40 people, and it is really hard to know all their names. And of course, the first weeks it is something very challenging. But unrelated to which age they are, they always will be pleased to know that the teachers recall them. So it is something really important, and there are lots of ways in which you can get to that point. Like when you get to know all the names, sometimes a good strategy is to put them in specific places and you get to memorize them better. But you have to be careful with that because they can switch places just to play with you. And well, my personal recommendation would be like take it as a joke because yeah, they are joking. They're not doing um, just to make you angry. And the second one will be respecting students, which I think it is like basic. Well, our students need to know that we treat them with respect, and this is related with the feedback. Because when we give feedback, they need to know that we are not mocking them or that we are not being sarcastic. We always have to try and do it in the best way possible so we won't end up hurting their feelings or whatever. And the third one is listening to students. This one is really important because it is hard for us to always be listening to people because they might be not saying something that it is interesting for us, but still it is something important for them. So we need to make them know that we are listening to them to a certain point. And well, at least pretend that you are interested in that. And being even-handed, this is really important and really basic for us as teachers. We shouldn't be biased for a student in particular, or a group of students in particular, because well, maybe you like them more because they are always participating, they are really nice to you or whatever, but you don't need to be biased for that. For example, if you are very chatty with them, not because of that you are going to give them a good grade. And also for the people that are always in the back or maybe they don't participate that much, you shouldn't have like a bad idea of them because most of the times they do it because they are shy or they are not confident enough to do it. So um, we as teachers should be able to um, grab that students and take him out of their shell. So yeah, basically that.
Okay, let's continue with the presentation. We have teacher tasks. Teaching doesn't just involve the relationship that we have with our students. As professionals, we are also asked to perform certain tasks. So, let's see what tasks are those. The first one is preparation. Teachers should be well prepared, and part of this preparation resides in the knowledge that we have of the subject. Because as teacher, we need to think in advance. We need to be sure that students know what are they going to do and what are they going to achieve. They need to be sure that as a teacher you are prepared, because if not, they will not feel comfortable with you. The second one is keeping records. Many teachers find that missing a feature of the job annoying, for example, taking the register, filling form, writing reports, etc. However, keeping records is a way of looking back. This means that we learn from our past experience, and based on that we need to start thinking about what to do next. But before of that, we have to evaluate what works and what doesn't. This is very helpful to avoid routines in the classroom that may cause the student start losing interest in the topic or start getting bored, okay? And the third one is being reliable. Professional teachers are reliable about things like timekeeping and homework. This means that as a teacher, we need to take in considerations that our students will arrive late to the classroom, or maybe they will not submit their homework for any reason, because at some point you will do or you did the same. Maybe you had a lot of homework and you were not able to put the degrees on time, or you were late to the classroom for any reason, personal, professional, etc. So telling them to pretend to do something that you know, it's unfair. So the best way to do this is practicing what we preach. Okay? Let's continue with the presentation. Now we have teacher skills, and those are skills that a teacher needs to have in order to have a successful class. Okay? The first skill is managing classes. Effective teachers see classroom management as a separate aspect of their skill. As we saw before, when we are well prepared, we know everything about what to do next. So we will know how to put the students into groups, or when to start and finish the activity, how to arrange the class, how to put the seats, and if the students are going to walking around the class. All of this in order to improve the teaching process. And also this will be with this we will be able to prevent disrupts behaviors and reacting to it effectively when it occurs. The next skill is matching tasks and groups. When you have your plan, it doesn't matter how well prepared it is. The things never happen as you wish. So in order to do it in a better way, you need to take in consideration some aspects. For example, variety and needs, like the topic, vary the topic, not always the same. Environment, the time of the day. For example, if you have a class of 40 students and it's really warm outside, you're not going to put them in, for example, an activity that involves walking around the class because of that. So in the point 3 activities, if you have a course book that implies to read, try to vary the activities, like putting a discussion or something like that. And as a point 4, you have the mood of the students. Maybe in a group that day works really well, and the next day it doesn't. Why? Because some students are sad, angry for some reason. So you need to take in consideration that. Okay? The next skill is variety. Good teachers vary activities and topics over a period of time. So to do that, they change the learning rules and change the type of activity. Even when the activity seems that imply doing the same. For example, a course book that always the structure is the same, like reading, when you read you answer questions or something like that. But as a teacher you can put some other activities. For example, before that, I don't know, discussing about what we are going to read, or after that discussion about what do you think about that. That's very simple. And maybe the student that always answer, don't put that student always, okay? Give the opportunity that another student that you know that have something interesting to say, but maybe it's really shy to do it. So encourage them to do it, that in order to vary and change the routines of the classroom, okay? The last and the most important skill is destination. When we take learning activities into the classroom, we need to persuade our student of their usefulness. For example, in your lesson plan you put some outcomes, but maybe the students don't notice that outcomes. So your work or your job is to persuade a student that, and they need to have an idea where they are going and to recognize where they have got there. Because as we saw before, they need to be sure that they are learning something for some reason. For example, the discussion usually don't have an outcome, like learning vocabulary or something like that, because it's a space to share opinions and ideas. However, the students need to feel that they are learning something. For example, improving the fluency, I don't know, sharing new ideas about the topic or something like that. All because they should know that they are learning something. That's all for my part. Let's continue with my partner.
Hello my dear friends. The next topic I will talk about the teacher knowledge. To put this in a question form, it would mean that I'm going to tell you what the teacher should know before starting a lesson. So apart from what my partner said about the skills necessary for organizing a successful lesson, teachers need to know a lot about the subject that they are teaching, in our cases the English language. But they will also need to know what equipment is available in their own school and how to use it. They need to know what materials are available for teachers and students. They should also do their best to keep updated of new developments in teaching approaches and techniques by consulting a range of print materials, online resources, and by attending, where possible, development sessions and teacher seminars. And there is a main reason for this. Students have a right to expect that teachers of the English language can explain straightforward grammar concepts, including how and when they are used. They expect their teachers to know the difference between the colloquial language that people use in informal conversation and the more formal language required in formal settings. They also expect teachers to be able to demonstrate and help them to pronounce words correctly and with appropriate intonation. Since we are also English students, I think that we can agree with that. When students have doubts, they frequently ask their teachers to explain things. They ask the W questions, what's the difference between this and that, or why can't we say this? And sometimes the answer will be easy to explain, but other times will be not. And even the most experienced teachers will have difficulty giving an instant answer. Teachers need to be aware that these difficult questions might be a distraction for the class, and in these cases we need to be able to quickly solve that problem by saying things like, oh, that's a very interesting question, or admitting that we don't have the answer, but we will look it and bring it for the next class. That leads us to our next topic, materials and resources. When students ask the kind of complicated questions mentioned above, good teachers know where to find the answers. We need, in other words, to know about books and websites where such technical information is available. However, this is quite a challenge today world. I know that nowadays there are multiple books, websites, dictionaries to look, but do not worry, no one expects teachers to be all-knowing in this respect. What a student can expect, however, is that teachers know where to find at least one good reference grammar at the appropriate level, or can direct them to a library or a website where they can find these things. If teachers are using a course book, students expect them, of course, to know how the material works. Their confidence will be greatly enhanced if they can see that the teacher has looked at the material they are using before the lesson and has worked out the way of dealing with it. Over the last few decades, the growth in different types of classroom equipment has been incredible. Once upon a time we had only pens, boards and chalk to work with, but then along came the tape recorder, the language laboratory, video machines, the overhead projector, computers, data projectors, and interactive whiteboards. And then I would add another moment in time that the book doesn't mention it. But I think with all the research that we have done in the pandemic times, we can be sure that the new equipment, or should I say classroom virtual equipment, have arrived, which are the use of blogs, podcasts, virtual platforms, and virtual classes, and so on and so on. Regarding this equipment, Harmer has a nice quote that I liked in the book, and it says the following: "As teachers, we need to do everything we can to keep abreast of technological change in educational resources. But we should never let technology drive our decisions about teaching and learning. We should instead decide what our learners want to achieve, and only then, see what kind of techniques and technology will help them to do this." In a few words, don't rely on technology. At least not always, just when you need it. Then, teachers need to know how to use variety of activities in the classroom, of course, but they also need to be constantly finding about new ways of doing things. A good way of learning about new activities and techniques is to read various teachers' magazines and journals. We can also learn a lot by attending seminars or teachers' conference, listening to other teachers describing new activities, so on and so on. So we need to keep in mind that all this kind of knowledge that we have been talking about is not static. Hence, they need to keep up to date. Things change almost daily. New books, classroom equipment, computer software are being produced all the time, just as teachers keep coming up with wonderful new ways of doing all things. Staying in touch with these developments can seem daunting, of course, because of the pace of the change is very fast. But it's always worth remembering how deadly it would be if things always stay the same. Finally, to conclude our presentation, I think after everything it has been talked, can we ask ourselves this question: is teaching language an art or is it a science? If you want, pause the video for a minute and think for yourself about this question. What is it for you? Okay, if you didn't decide to pause, we will continue. As we have shown, teachers must have almost scientific attributes, understanding the language system and finding the best way to explain it, especially when we continue to research and make changes and evolve. In the same way, some of the technical skills that are required of teachers need to be almost scientific in their rigor. Yet, teaching could be an art too. If we think when this can happen, we could say that it is when the relationship that is created between teachers and students, and also among the students in their own group, is at its best, because we have managed to establish a good rapport with a group, and then if we manage to do that, almost anything is possible. Also, getting our students to be really interested in a new activity may be observable, but trying to work out exactly how it was done or why it happened may be more difficult. In the same way, the instant decision making we have been discussing can happen, and teachers need to put aside for a bit the scientific grounds and let creativity be free. This often is the result of the teacher feelings or judgment at the very moment. For, as we have said, good teachers listen and watch. Use both professional and personal skills to respond to what they see and hear. The author ends the chapter by saying another quote that says, "Good teachers have a knack of responding by doing things right, and that is most definitely an art." That's all on my part. Thank you for listening. See you in the class.
Now we have some reflective questions for you to think about. These questions are also in the document that we are going to share with you. We have our references over here. And that's all for today. Thanks for your attention. Have a nice afternoon.